All right. So what we're going to do here is a new segment. After every week, I'm thinking I'm going to start this up. I'm going to give you guys the good and the bad. So, the good and the bad from week 1, and I'm just going to kind of rapid fire through this. My top 5 good from week 1 and my top 5, I guess you could say bottom 5 bad from week 1. And I'm not going to spend too much time here. I'm just going to give you a little short overview of a couple good things and a couple of bad things from week 1. And then after that, I'm just going to get into a bunch of different topics. I got a couple of things I want to touch on today. So we'll get into a couple of things after that. But we're going to start with the good and the bad from week 1. Okay, these are in no particular order. No order in particular. I just threw it together, top 5, bottom 5. So don't think I'm ranking these. I'm not. But these are the good. We'll start with the good, starting with Baker Mayfield. Yeah, Baker Mayfield looks good. Okay, the Bucks, they won 37-20 against the Commanders pretty convincingly. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin both played very good games. Both were targeted a lot. Okay, Mike Evans ended with, I think it was around 68, 61 yards, had 2 touchdowns. Godwin had a good amount of yards. He was playing in the slot, which is different because he's been a slot receiver in the past, and now they got him in the slot, and he was thriving. And I think it's a good thing. I think we're going to see Chris Godwin thrive a lot more in this offense, and that's especially going to happen when Baker Mayfield is diming it up. Okay, so the Bucks overall is a good. They were part of the good, but I just left it here for Baker Mayfield because that guy was tearing up this Commander secondary. Okay, 289 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, leads the league in touchdowns right now. Baker Mayfield does 4 touchdowns, not a single interception. He was looking really good. 24 of 30 on completions. Baker Mayfield was slinging the football. I watched a whole lot of that game, and everything was just looking smooth with Baker Mayfield. He was diming up Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. A couple of nice long balls, threw a beautiful ball to Evans, and Evans made a spectacular play on it in the end zone for Evans' first touchdown in the game. Baker Mayfield has turned into a legit quarterback. I'm here to say it. I hope other people are acknowledging that because Baker Mayfield has turned into a legit quarterback in this league, somebody who will be a top quarterback, somebody who's not just floating around like Mayfield kind of with the Browns. It got ugly. But no, he's a Tampa Bay Buck. He found his home in Tampa and he's looking good. So Baker Mayfield's part of the good. The next is Derek Carr. Derek Carr, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards, absolutely dismantled the Panthers. It was 47-10 was the final score. And oh my gosh, I mean, Derek Carr, that guy looked great. For you guys on the pod who have listened to this for a while and just know me, they know that I've had some opinions about Derek Carr in the past about how, back when the season where they when they traded for Davante Adams, I was really high on Derek Carr. And I thought Derek Carr was going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. It got ugly after that. Derek Carr looked good. Okay. The Panthers defense sucks. It's worse than I thought. I thought their defense coming into the year wasn't going to be horrible. No, it was bad. The Panthers defense was not good. So we'll see how Derek Carr does next week. But I think they're playing. Actually, I'm not exactly positive on who the Saints are going to be going against next week, but they're going against Dallas. So that's definitely a better matchup, worse matchup for Carr. But anyways, Derek Carr was looking really, really good. Put up 3 touchdowns, not a single interception. He was diming up his receivers. Derek Carr was looking fire. So shout out to him, part of the good list this week. Next, we got on the Friday night game, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley was the best looking running back of the week. And coming into the year, I didn't know exactly what to expect, right? Saquon Barkley has had his career with the Giants, hasn't looked he's obviously looked good. He's been an elite running back, but been hurt. Tough offensive line makes it not easy to produce in an offense like that, right? So here's Saquon Barkley in his first season with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he thrived. That offensive line was opening up holes all over the place for him. He was breaking tackles. Saquon was caught a 20-yard touchdown pass. I mean, he was just everywhere. Ended with 3 touchdowns, 109 rush yards, and 23 receiving yards. And they end up beating the Green Bay Packers in a really good Friday night game, although don't even get me started on the field conditions because that was ugly. That game probably should have never been played in Brazil. But no, Saquon Barkley, fantastic. Probably the best running back of the week. I'm pretty sure he had the most fantasy points out of anybody this week. So Saquon, definitely part of the good here in week 1. The fourth guy in my good category is Sam Darnold. How weird. I'd have never said that, okay? Listen, I'm not getting on a Sam Darnold hype train or anything. I'm very far from that. And do I think Darnold will come back down to earth? Of course I do. I'm not high on Sam Darnold, but I'm not going to sit here and take away from what he did yesterday. This is being recorded. No, not yesterday. 2 days ago. This is being recorded Tuesday night. Y'all are probably hearing this Wednesday morning, or afternoon, I should say. But I'm not going to take away what Sam Darnold did. It's the Giants defense. I know, again, another not good defense going against. But Darnold, he started the day 12 of 12, completed his first 12 passes, ended the day 208 passing yards with 2 touchdowns, did have an interception, threw the ball 19 of 24. That was his completion percentage. That was his ratio. Well, not ratio, but I guess percentage, 19 of 24, whatever you want to call it. And they end up crushing the Giants 28-6. Darnold looked good. He found Justin Jefferson. My biggest critique of the Minnesota Vikings coming into the season, especially of guys like Justin Jefferson in terms of fantasy football value, was Sam Darnold. He's the guy who's throwing him the football. And it's tough to trust a guy. It's tough to trust an offense with a guy like Sam Darnold, who is leading the show, right? Throwing the passes. So I was not high on him, but Darnold looked really good today and Sunday. And am I expecting this to keep going? Not really, but I'm giving him his flowers because Darnold had a really good game. And hey, if Justin Jefferson, listen, Darnold's a guy who's relying on heavily on that first read. Okay. If the first read's not there, could be ugly. And hey, it's the best guy in the league, arguably, to have as your first read, Justin Jefferson. So Jay Jettis can keep getting open like that. It could be an interesting season for the Vikings and Sam Darnold. My last guy is Jim Harbaugh. Kind of an interesting pick here. They end up beating the Raiders after going down. They were down 7-0, I think. The Raiders might have scored the first 7-3 in the first quarter. And they scored a decent amount in the end. It was 22-10 was the final score. Harbaugh found his way. Okay. Didn't need to pass the ball much. He found J.K. Dobbins, a little diamond in the rough there, who I was kind of high on coming into the year because I was like, listen, J.K. Dobbins was good in Baltimore. He was just always injured. He's going to be that RB1. And although Gus Edwards, who was also a Baltimore Raven, still got a solid amount of touches. In fact, he may have gotten more, if I'm not mistaken. Gus Edwards got 11. J.K. Dobbins got 10. But J.K. Dobbins was a heck of a lot more efficient than Gus Edwards was. Had 135 rush yards with a touchdown and pretty much just looked really, really good. So Jim Harbaugh still finding ways to win in the NFL, went against a bad Raiders team who looked worse than I anticipated them to look. But shout out Jim Harbaugh. Got his first win back in the NFL. Okay, let's get to the bad. And there's some stinkers. There are some stinkers. Starting with Deshaun Watson. Oh, I just don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson to go from a top 5 elite quarterback to whatever the heck I watched on Sunday. I'm going to dive into this way more after I get into the good and the bad. So I'm just going to touch on it here. All I'm going to say is Deshaun Watson was horrendous. 169 yards, which a lot of those came from one drive. It's like a 75-yard drive. And then like some of them came towards the end in garbage time. 1 touchdown, 2 picks, both bad. Fumbled the ball once, if I'm not mistaken, but it got jumped on by a Brown, I think. I mean, Deshaun Watson doesn't know where to go with the ball, doesn't know where to go with himself, doesn't know who to throw to. And when he finds the guy to throw to, he's not even close to accurate. He has dropped off significantly. I was on the hope that he could maybe have a revival season, especially because he was kind of my backup quarterback when Jordan Love got hurt. Not anymore. He's not going to be. Deshaun Watson is a bad football player. I don't know what happened, but he's not good. And he was arguably the ugliest thing about week 1. Number 2, we're going to go with the Giants. They just looked terrible. Didn't score a touchdown. It was 28-6 was the final score as they lost to the Vikings. Daniel Jones, I mean, we know this. I've said it a billion times. Even when they paid Daniel Jones, I said it was one of the worst contracts ever. I think there was a podcast of me talking about it for like half hour of how bad of a contract that was. Of course it was. I was right. I mean, I don't know how you could be wrong about that. Daniel Jones is bad. They should have never paid him that money. And they did. And it was the biggest mistake. And it set this franchise back years. What do you do with Daniel Jones now? Well, you paid him $40 million per season. So you either you got to, I guess if I'm the Giants, you let him play and stink it up and hope you lose every game and get the number one pick and then draft a quarterback. I guess he's so bad. And I feel so bad for Malik Neighbors. But the Giants are just, it's Daniel Jones and the Giants. I already knew Daniel Jones was bad. And I obviously knew the Giants was bad. But man, the Giants are just bad. They set themselves back big time. Number 3 is the Bengals. Listen, I'm not too worried because we've seen it's like death, taxes, and the Bengals starting 0-1, even 0-2. I mean, like, that's just what they do. They suck in the beginning of the year. They lost to the Patriots. They lost me my survivor pool because I picked them and I shouldn't have because I know they always suck in week 1. And they lost to the New England Patriots, who, in my opinion, should be probably the worst team in the NFL, maybe just bottom 4. They lost 16-10. Burrow did bad, didn't throw a touchdown, had less than 200 yards. Quarterbacks in general this week were pretty putrid besides the first couple that I named, and that was pretty much it. And obviously some of the elite ones, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, they were fine. But just the Bengals did not look good. Jamar couldn't really get him the ball. But again, not worried. They'll figure it out how they always just end up doing so. The Panthers, yeah, I thought maybe there was a little glimmer of hope that the Panthers would be okay. They're not. They suck. They might even somehow be worse than last year. And at least they have their pick this year. At least the Panthers have their pick this year because last year they were the worst team and they didn't even have their pick. So the Panthers are just terrible. They lost 47-10 to the New Orleans Saints. Bryce Young looked bad. Last season, I was a little bit of a Bryce Young defender. I thought he wasn't as bad as people made him out to be. He didn't have the weapons like a guy like CJ Stroud does. His offensive line is absolutely atrocious. Bryce Young did not look good. He doesn't know where to go when he's in the pocket. To be quite honest, I don't know if his athleticism can hang with the NFL guys because it's like every play, he's got to like put in every 100% effort. He's like running for his life. It's just, I hope he does well, and I'm rooting for the Panthers, and I'm rooting for Bryce Young, but it doesn't look good. And the final guy on my bad list is Kirk Cousins. The Falcons' offense was not good. The Falcons' offense was surprisingly terrible. Kirk had 155 yards, only threw for 1 touchdown, which was to Kyle Pitts. Shout out Kyle Pitts, who's on my fantasy team, 3rd-rated tight end this week. And he had 2 interceptions, one that came at a really costly moment towards the end of the game. Kirk Cousins looked bad. He looked like a guy. He looked like a 35-year-old quarterback who just came off of an Achilles tear. And he did. That's him. Hopefully he can shake the rust off. It's week 1. Again, it's week 1, right? So all these things are I'm just going off of what I saw in week 1. And who knows, things can drastically turn around. And I like Kirk Cousins generally. I think he's a fine quarterback, but it was ugly in week 1. He did not play good. A costly pick in the end, had 2 interceptions overall. Couldn't really get the offense moving. They were feeding Bijan like crazy, and they still weren't really moving the ball. Atlanta looked bad, and Kirk looked bad. That is the good and the bad from week 1. My top 5 and bottom 5 from week 1.